You're listening to a Hastings Examiner podcast. Hastings Examiner is a community-based news source which anyone can contribute to. Check out hastings-examiner.uk to learn more.
Right, we're here today with Grace Lally from Housing Rebellion and Jane Ripley from Standing Up for Nature, and we're here to talk about the local plan. So what is the local plan and why should people care about it?
Okay, so the local plan it's out for consultation at the moment. The council has the opportunity to create a plan of what we want to be developed or not developed where in the town, and that will then be the legal framework for any future planning applications that get put in by anyone who wants to build or do anything in the town. So it's like an overview of what's going to happen over the next 20 years. The context for this is that we have a government that has a very pro-builder agenda. They're claiming they want 1.5 million houses to be built over the next parliament. And so they put very high targets onto the council about using the local plan to create more opportunities for developers to build these houses. So that's a big pressure that's on the local plan to enable and to encourage and support more building. And then, of course, there's the pressure that we want to put on, which is to say we want a plan that looks after our communities, our green spaces, that provide the affordable homes we need. So that's the battle really going on over this plan.
Sure, yeah. So what is the issue with building these new houses then? Because I think the average person, that sounds like a good thing, right? We have a housing crisis, we need new homes, but yeah.
I'd say that more than a housing crisis, we have an affordable housing crisis. So if you've got enough money, there's plenty of houses for you.
Mm.
We've seen rents go up, we've seen mortgages go up. So it's the people that can't get in on the bottom of that. And they're the people that these properties won't be for on the whole. So if you were looking at a site on the edge of the country park, for example, they're going to be expensive houses, and even the affordable houses on that site, if they build them, are still going to be out of the reach of local people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's all based on a complete fallacy, isn't it? The government is claiming that if they encourage developers to build 1.5 million houses, that will deal with the housing crisis, when we know that developers will only build if it's profitable for them and if they can get the maximum price. So they already sit on they hoard lands and don't build houses until they know they can get the price they want. So they have no interest in building affordable homes. It's like it wouldn't even make any sense for them. So it's all a bit of a fallacy that you can encourage developers to build, make it easier and easier for developers to build, and then that's going to deliver houses that people need. It won't. It will just add to the speculative kind of bubble around property, and it will just mean more and more second homes, investment properties, properties that are for Airbnb and holiday let. There's no reason to imagine that people who can't afford to buy a house now will suddenly be buying these houses in the future.
Exactly, and there's 1.4 million unbuilt homes that already have planning permission on them.
Yeah.
So there's no shortage of properties to be built. They're just land banking and hoarding. It's hoarding. Really.
Right, sure. So yeah, the housing plan is more about profit than it is about actually providing homes for.
Yeah, because they act like a cartel, and when the supply, if you're in the business of keeping your prices up, you hold back supply. You don't see house prices drop for very often or for very long. They'll come down and then they'll bounce back up again, because governments will bring schemes in like the Help to Buy to be able to boost those profits.
I mean, it's before we start saying about what the local plan can do, it's worth saying like what it can't do. That if you think back when when government wanted new housing that people could afford, they actually compulsory purchased huge amounts of agricultural land and created new towns. That's the kind of planning they did. It was the government who did that, to create new towns for people to live in. They didn't just create the conditions for private developers to build and hope that they created them. So this plan is only about what can be built and where. It doesn't we need a very different kind of plan if we want to deal with the housing crisis, is the truth. You need a government that says, okay, we're going to invest money in buying up private homes and turning them into social housing. We're going to build affordable, secure social housing. But that's not up for discussion in this plan. That's not part of this plan.
Sure, right. So I mean, would an ideal plan like account for the empty homes around town or homes being used for Airbnbs, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and other places have done that. Like if you look at Devon and Cornwall, they recognise that their villages and towns are turning into places that are completely empty during the winter. Well, they could be homes for people, and that's happening in Hastings too. People are constantly saying the noise and the interruption to their daily lives that comes from Airbnbs, and that means that that's not a home that's being used for a local family for all of the months of the year.
Right. So so as you see it, what's wrong with the proposed plan? And what would an ideal plan look like?
Where should we start, Jane?
First of all, I think it's good to say that there are things in it that are good. So there's mandating for things like Swift bricks on houses. That's something the government wouldn't do. Well, the English government, the Scottish government did. That's £35 a brick, it's nothing. So we can do things like that, and passive house standards, which means they're really cheap to run, they're really insulated and warm and healthy for people to live in. So there are good things in there, just think it could go further.
Yeah, it could go quite a lot further. The biggest problem is, as we said, the pressure on the council with this plan from the government is to provide opportunities for developers to build. So there's a huge number of green spaces, sites in this plan, which are basically people are being encouraged to build on if this plan goes through as it is. We need to get that reversed. We need to get those taken out. There is a section of the plan about housing renewal areas, which is about existing social housing in the town owned by Southern Housing and Orbit. People will know that the empty block Clifton Court, right by Cornwallis Gardens, which has been sitting empty for years, and the four courts, which is 400 social properties up in Hollington. The plan gives free rein for the housing associations to demolish those flats, and there's no requirement within the plan for them to look at retrofit options, which we think is just a really simple thing that could be put into the plan, that anyone who wants to demolish a house needs to prove first that they can't retrofit it and refurbish it. And for social housing, that's even more important, because if you lose those social housing flats, there's absolutely no guarantee that they'll be replaced with social housing or affordable homes that people need. So there's very clear things that could be put in and things that could be taken out to make the plan stronger.
Yeah, and looking at the strategic housing. The strategic housing economic land availability assessment in 2020 showed that most of the green sites were actually unsuitable to go through for development. 6 years on, in that time, we've had changed a global pandemic, which made us realise how important green spaces are for our mental and health, our well-being. We've had, in 2022, we hit 40 degrees, which made us realise just how cool it is to be by green spaces and blue spaces and not in huge urbanised areas. In 2023, we had 2 once-in-a-decade flood events in Hastings, which has left some properties still unusable. So we had landslides and we had flooding, and they could be properties that people could live in now, or could have been for the last 6 years. We also had the State of Nature report in 23, which showed us that we're one of the most nature depleted countries in the world, and we are the most nature depleted out of the G7. So nature-based solutions doesn't just mean, it's not just words, it means that we have to safeguard nature in order to safeguard us and the houses that we already live in. Then in 2024, we had more flooding. 25 was a drought year. 26, we've already had 150% of the rain that we would expect over a normal winter. So we are already in a climate crisis. This isn't something that we just put words down and then carry on as normal. We have to start acting as if we are in an emergency. council declared a nature emergency and this last year, and declared a climate emergency 5 years, 6 years ago. This is what it looks like. This is an emergency. We don't do things in the normal way when we're in an emergency.
No, absolutely. And like, if this plan was in any way to seriously what you're talking about, that there's a climate crisis, I mean, it would be looking at how do we best conserve and use the resources we have? How do we share out housing so it's most effectively used? Not some people having 2 or 3 houses and other people having none. We would be looking at how do we think ahead for all those areas along the seafronts that are going to be underwater. I mean, there's a really serious possibility that the whole of the town centre will be unusable if given projected sea level rises and flooding and increased rainfall. You know, is there going to be seawalls built? Is there going to be defences for those parts of the town under threat? Definitely, we shouldn't be building more on you know the old bathing pool site and places like that. If we're serious about planning to stop climate change from getting worse, but also to recognise that climate change is happening and is going to get worse, then this idea of just building on floodplains, on where the sea is going to come in, it's madness. And if we don't plan for that, again, developers might build and sell it, get away with selling it now, but in 20 years' time or 30 years' time, when those houses are unlivable, it will be the public purse, it will be us as a society that has to pick up the bill, you know, and say, where are those people going to go if those houses are unlivable, uninsurable, So this plan doesn't. I don't think there's any sense in the plan that that's the future we're headed for.
And the buildings that will go on the green sites will impact massively on houses that already exist. So the Tileken site is a catchment for the Bourne Stream, which goes down into the Old Town. It already in 2023, one house they had to evict for about 6 months. There was a whole block of flats who couldn't use any power. They had no electricity or gas because the meters were all flooded. So it doesn't make sense. It makes absolute sense to house people, but it doesn't make sense to do that at the expense of properties that already exist to become unlivable or uninsurable. Because as we've seen already, people don't live in houses that they can't insure that are flood prone.
Right, so the plan as it stands is going to make all these problems worse in the long run, sounds like.
Yeah.
Right. Yep, usual, but yep. So if people want to help out with that, people want to sort of, steer us towards some kind of better plan, what could they do to help?
So what we've done, we've done a very detailed document with Standing Up for Nature, a sort of submission on a very detailed breakdown of the different elements of the local plan that we're suggesting could be changed. But we've created a sort of an umbrella website called Communities versus Developers, which is a little bit of a provocative title, but it's about explaining to people that there's 2 visions for Hastings up for grabs here, and communities have got to step up because the developers are lobbying hard for what they want, and they're trying to get the government to reduce any sort of friction blockers, as they call it, nature getting in the way. They're lobbying hard for their agenda. Communities, we have to step up and lobby for what we want. So on that website, we've got links to all the different local groups that are springing up to defend the green spaces that are in the local plan that people want to save, and groups within that, like the group is coming together around the convent site on Magdalen Road. There's people coming together to create a community campaign to see if they can come up with a community plan for that site. Similarly, people down on the bathing pool site campaign around that, ideas for how it could be used as an amenity space developed for the community, not for long-term gain for everybody. So there's amazing stuff happening all around town. We're trying to use that website as a sort of pointer to all these different groups, and each one will then give you a suggestion of what we can put in the local plan to support their vision for the town. And co-ops who want to be supported within the local plan to get preferential treatment and support if co-ops come forward to build community homes, affordable homes. So there's lots of positive things we can put into the plan, and a lot of information.
Great, yes, we'll put the link up with this video so people can click on it.
And we've also got Standing Up for Nature have a Facebook page that's quite interactive, so people can go on, and we're putting up news as it comes on and from all the campaign groups, because we realise that although we look at it purely in terms of housing, having green spaces means you support things like pollinators, which pollinate our food. We need food as well as housing, and so we're kind of coming at it from every direction.
If I were throwing in, like, there's wider issues around housing as well, isn't there? Of like the infrastructure of transport and health and education, all of that is in the plan, and whether it makes any difference when we say what's going in the plan, we'll find out. But yeah, so there's links to the groups who want to see more of cycling infrastructure and that public transport infrastructure and so on. All of that can be put in, or some of it is in there already. But it's worth saying, I mean, let's fight for the best plan we can. Let's get the most feedback we can. But people need to realise it's just one tool in the armoury for councillors to have if they want to stop bad development or want to direct funding towards things the community wants. But if we don't also elect councillors onto the planning authorities, onto the councils who want to use the local plan to do that, then it's also a bit of a waste of time, because
it's also important to talk to our MPs.
Yeah.
Because people say, well, their MPs just say, well, it's local planning, it's not my bag. But actually, if you're in government, or if your party's in government, then it's your policies that are driving all of this. So people, as well as talking to us and coming to the events that we'll be putting on to help people fill out the consultation, talk to your councillors, because actually our council would really like your support and want to know what you want to do, because I think they want to do a lot more than they're being given the opportunity to by these targets. But talk to the MP, because they're the ones that are making the decisions right up at the very top.
Cool. Right. Well, it sounds like people have things they can do to help out if they want to. We'll put those links on the video. Great. Grace from Housing Rebellion and Jane from Standing for Nature, thanks for talking to us today.
Thank you, Liam.